What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Sports Talk on Tap video. We're here. You can find daily videos Monday through Friday covering all the four major sports leagues, whether it be NFL, NHL, MLB, or NBA, games, highlights, news, all that fun stuff. We're here to talk about it. And Nick, in today's NBA episode, obviously no Team USA games to talk about. So we're kind of back on that series of just kind of talking about a team. Throughout the NBA offseason, kind of expectations and stuff, we're going to talk about an interesting team that I feel like, wasn't getting, enough respect. They kind of fell off the map. But then, as if you haven't already, anyone who's seen, make sure to check out our Sports Talk on Tap TikTok. I was just kind of scrolling through some sports TikToks on that, and I just saw a lot of people doing like their Western Conference predictions for next season, and about 3 or 4 of them I saw had the Grizzlies in their top 3 seeds, and a lot of people, I was like, okay. So now a lot of people, kind of are respecting them again, and they haven't forgot about them. But, I'm not necessarily sure I wholeheartedly agree, that they'll be there. But, it's an interesting team because obviously, Nick, the last couple of years for the Grizzlies have been pretty insane. Drama on and off the court. Doesn't need no introduction. We kind of go back a couple of years ago. Ja Morant really kind of takes the league by storm. They add Desmond Bane back. They make the playoffs as like an 8th seed, lose to the Jazz. That's kind of whatever. Then the next year, they take that leap, or the 2 seed, 56 wins. And, they beat the Timberwolves in round 1, advance to the second round where they lose to the eventual champs Golden State Warriors in 6 games, though. So it was a hard-fought series. And Ja Morant was injured in that series. So, if he's fully healthy, who knows what happens there. But kind of they fall short. Then the next season they come back. Last year are another top 2 seed again. And then kind of the Dillon Brooks drama comes out. He's kind of trash-talking LeBron. And they kind of loses in the first round as a 2 seed to the 7 seed Lakers in 6 games. And that, made them kind of make some changes last offseason where they don't re-sign Dillon Brooks. And I feel like I never really liked how they kind of went about it. I think they kind of threw him under the bus when realistically, he was in a way the heart and soul of that team, going out doing the little things like, dancing introductions, like their famous iconic like walkout songs. He was a leader of that team, and they kind of just kicked him to the curb. And I'm fine if you don't want to bring him back, but at the end of the day, he was your best defender. He kind of took on the challenge. Was he a shot chucker? Yeah, but you just don't kind of treat someone like that. At the end of the day, they are human. He was a big reason why you won 50 plus games and were 2 seed back-to-back years. They kind of kick him to the curb, which is fine. They bring in Marcus Smart, which is, I think, a solid move because Marcus Smart kind of is that new Dillon Brooks role, good defender, shot chucker, kind of, almost the exact same player now. But, boy, I mean, the season had high expectations, but obviously fell to the side quickly with the Ja Morant suspension. Desmond Bane gets injured midway through. Jaren Jackson was dealing with injuries all year. Marcus Smart missed most of the year. So, Nick, this was kind of a disaster year with some, little glimpses like, Desmond Bane was able to do a good job in the games he did play to take on that scoring role, like 23 points per game. GG Jackson showed a lot of flashes as a rookie. So there was kind of some glimmer of hopes despite, obviously finishing 13th due to a lot of injuries. And, they were really good in the games Ja played. Even though it was only like 7, they were like 5-2 or something. So they were really solid for that short time they had him. But, Nick, now that they pending everything, pending no more guns on Instagram Live, this team is healthy. They added Zach Edey, top 10 pick in the draft. What are your expectations for this Grizzlies team heading into next year?
I do expect them to be back in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to be like, the 2 seed that we're talking about. But I expect them to be back. I keep talking about how, like, I just think teams in the West are growing at a faster rate than a team like the Grizzlies just because, when you're dealing with all this, flashing guns on Instagram, half a season suspension, injuries left and right, it's tough to build a team when half your core is not on the court. Some of it is their fault. Some of it isn't their fault. I know Marcus Smart had, I believe it was a hand injury last year. Was it a hand injury?
Yeah.
And so he didn't play. I think he played 20 or 30 games. I think with their team fully healthy, they will be a playoff team. But getting into that, I kind of wanted to do the this or that with you just for, the Grizzlies, comparing them to teams in the West. Just
Okay.
They finished
Now, when you do this or that, is this like a playoff series or who I think finishes higher in the regular season? Because the Grizzlies.
Who finishes higher in the regular season? We won't do playoffs just because they weren't a playoff.
For me, the Grizzlies are like a regular season team. So I respect them for that. Like if it's a regular, because I don't know how high. I think we're kind of around the same page on where we think they'll finish, but I'm curious to get your thoughts.
Okay, well, I'm going to start out from bottom to top because they were the 13th seed in the West last year, so they were not good. So I'm going to go the 12th seed, the Jazz.
They'll finish definitely higher than the Jazz. That's no questions asked.
Okay, this one I think could, go back and forth because it does for me a little bit. The Rockets.
I think the Rockets are going to take that jump into a high playing spot, but I feel like it comes down to, for me, the Grizzlies have shown when they're fully healthy, they can be a top 2 seed. I'm not going to have them probably in the top 2 seeds, obviously, because, like you said, a lot of teams are growing. But this team still is a really good team when fully healthy. So I'm going to have them higher than the Rockets. But the Rockets will be taking that jump as well. I just think the Grizzlies, fully healthy, jump.
Yep. Okay. Warriors.
Higher.
Okay.
Yeah, Warriors are not making the play-in for me.
Ooh, okay. That's a hot take. Maybe we'll get into that.
Well, if the Grizzlies and Rockets make it, and they were the last bone-in last season as the 10th seed, if I anticipate the Grizzlies and Rockets to take that step, they're easy the team that's getting kicked off.
Well, I feel like there's going to be a team or two that falls off, but we can get into that after. I'll give my thoughts after. But the new and improved Kings with DeMar DeRozan.
Kings are an interesting one. We got to do our West playoff predictions, 1 through 15 seeds at some point. I'm probably still gonna have the Grizzlies higher though.
Okay. I think that's a tough one for me too. In the regular season, I'd probably pick the Grizzlies, like you said. I think guys. Obviously, Josh shows up in the playoffs, but I think he's a guy who just shows up in the regular season and gets.
And it is tough because the whole Jaren Jackson thing kind of gets the defense problem gets tougher in the playoffs just because he has to guard a lot more. But they brought in Zach Edey, so really Zach Edey might be the X factor. Can those two play alongside each other? If Jaren Jackson can have the 3-point jump shot, that could be really deadly. But we'll see. But in the meantime, Grizzlies they find a way to win the regular season. So,
Okay. Pelicans. I think I would say Grizzlies personally. I think this one.
Yeah, Grizzlies. Unless I gotta see Zion. Not sure really what Brandon Ingram's gonna be doing this offseason, if he still gets traded or not. So I'm going with Grizzlies.
Yeah, I know the Zion factor is if he's on the court, he's good, but he's never on the court. So I have to, at this point in his career with the Pelicans, I have to factor that in. So next, Lakers.
They're gonna be higher than the Lakers.
I agree. I think I have one of the team. The Lakers might be one of my teams where I think they fall way down. They might be a borderline.
I don't think they fall way down, but I have them in probably the second part of the plan, just because they still have LeBron, AD, D'Lo, Reeves, Hachimura. They got a lot of pieces still, and they were rarely injured last year. But even then, the West still just got a lot better. So they're definitely a team that may fall a spot or two.
The Suns.
They'll be right than the Suns.
Ooh, see, that one's tough for me. I kind of want to say the Suns. I know they got embarrassed in the playoffs, but if we're talking regular season, unless I know Bradley Beal's health, I'll just have to talk about. But I feel like
regular season, even then, they didn't even win 50 games. So
they won 49 games. I think the Suns will be better this year. I'm not picking them to go to the finals.
I think
but
they'll be slightly better too, but I don't know. Just something about it. I got KD's never going to play a full regular season. Same with Bradley Beal. So I'm going to trust the Grizzlies just to be a little bit more healthier just because they can't have any worse injury luck than they did last year.
That's true. Yep. Okay, now we're getting into, the tough ones. Mavericks.
I think this is exactly where I kind of have the Grizzlies. I think it'd be like a Grizzlies Mavericks 4-5 matchup, in my opinion.
Okay.
So wherever you kind of want to take that, I'll give Dallas the respect though, since they were the reigning Western Conference champs. So I'll have Dallas finishing slightly higher, but Dallas isn't like the regular season grinders like Memphis is. So it wouldn't surprise me if Memphis finished slightly above Dallas.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. Actually, I kind of had. You want to swap them or no?
I'll have. If I want to be really critical going into, I'll give because I do like the Grizzlies. I'll give them the respect and say slightly higher regular season wise, but in a playoff setting, like I'm picking the Mavericks in like 6 games.
Yeah. I think you were right though. I had going into this, I probably would have had the Grizzlies as like a 5 seed, maybe.
Yeah, they're a 4 or 5 seed to me. They're not going to be like a top 2 seed like they have been, but they're not going to, they're definitely going to be back up because those 2 years aren't just forgotten. We do remember how good they were. So, all
right, the Clippers.
They're going to be better. Clippers are going to be a team that I think falls off dramatically for me.
I agree. That was one of the 2 teams. I had the Lakers. I had both LA teams kind of taking a step back and dropping down in the playoffs. And then the top 3 teams I don't think are better. We
don't even have to. I don't think the Grizzlies will finish higher than the Nuggets.
Wolves, Nuggets, or Thunder, I think are all better. I know the Nuggets have been out of those 3 teams, the Nuggets have improved the least, but I still think they're better.
Out of those 3 teams, if they were to jump one team, to me, like without knowing it, I'd say the Nuggets just because Nuggets did get slightly worse. And, at the end of the day, Jamal Murray kind of is always banged up during the regular season. Nikola Jokic, how much can he carry, So Michael Porter Jr. also is kind of banged up at given points. So the depth could be a concern regular season win-wise. So it wouldn't wholeheartedly shock me if the Grizzlies were like, a win or 2 better than the Nuggets. But at the end of the day, I'm going to trust Jokic and this team just because they do have that championship to their name. Yeah. So got to give them that respect there. But even as a Timberwolves fan, I know Memphis and the Timberwolves are kind of rivals, but I like Memphis a lot just because they have that swagger to them that I, enjoy watching. Their cockiness, I really enjoyed them with Dylan Brooks. Even though they didn't get it done in the playoffs, they were still a fun team to watch. But yeah, that was a fun this or that. But, I'm kind of, I think we kind of may have been on the same page when we were doing this or that. I'm kind of projecting them to be around probably the 5 seed range when we do our playoff predictions, just because this team is very interesting. Ja is still only 24 years old, despite basically missing this whole last year. And he showed he still a great starting point guard. Desmond Bane, very solid shooting guard. Jaren Jackson, we know he's a defensive player of the year candidate on defense, and that 3-point ball, if it's falling, he can be a lethal 2-way player. Zach Edey's coming into the mix after rising up draft boards, because kind of showing maybe he has the style to play in the NBA and kind of just be, a solid rim protector and just a solid finisher around the paint. So that'll be very interesting. Then obviously, Marcus Smart still there. You still have Brandon Clark, who is a very underrated player for them. Heavy guy, offensive rebounder, can kind of do a little bit of everything. And he was a thorn in the Timberwolves side in that playoff series, just getting critical offensive rebounds every time. You still have GG Jackson entering year 2. So is there another leap there? This Grizzlies team is very sneakily, very deep, and a team that I kind of mess with entering the regular season because, they are a team that's kind of forgotten after injuries last year. But this is a team that, like I said, was a top 2 seed these last 2 seasons before. Playoffs are definitely a whole different question mark with this team just because the spacing, I think, can get a little bit funky. And, do they have the leadership to kind of go far is an interesting point. I think that's why they added Marcus Smart. But, it will be interesting to see.
Yeah. Do you think Do you think Ja is going to put his name kind of back into those MVP talks? I know he was getting a little bit of them when they were that 2 seed back-to-back years, and he was playing, really good
I think
basketball.
he'll get his name. I think he'll get his name back in like all NBA consideration. It's just so tough. Even Nick, I feel like 2 years ago, I think their peak was 56 wins, and he still wasn't even like a top 3 to 5 guy voting wise. I think it's just so tough to get back to that. I think he'll be a really solid player, like 25 points. But at the end of the day, this league is just full of the big men scoring 33 points per game and all that. SGA, the efficiency he scores 30 plus per game. It's just going to be so tough. But part of the reason why Ja's so good is because he's so fun to watch. He's kind of like him and Ant Edwards, kind of a lot of this different play style, but similar in the way highlight reel dunks, highlight reel plays. Although I think that may have been something that this year hurt him, because I think before last season, Nick, a lot of people had Ja slightly ahead of Ant Edwards in their talks of who the better players, but players like that I think have kind of leaped Ja, so Ja needs to kind of get back and prove something this season. But either way, he's still a really fun player to watch. And like I said, despite missing this year, he's still only going to be 24, 25 years old. So he's still got a good amount of time. Although I think his play style kind of wears down quicker just because he relies a lot on driving to the basket and, points in the paint. And that does take a toll on you physically. And, that may be why he gets banged up a little bit more, because that jump shot, I think for him is something, if that falls, that may be the next part to what takes Memphis to a deep playoff team instead of a first round exit or early second round, just because the spacing gets a little bit funky when you're trying out a lineup of John Morant, Jaren Jackson, maybe Zach Edey, a lot of guys that can't really shoot. And the only guy that can is Desmond Bane consistently. So, that's kind of where the spacing issue can become a problem in the playoffs.
Yep. No, I agree. If he becomes a shooter, he's going to be
just consistent. Doesn't even need to, but a lot of the times people will just leave him open and take the gamble.
Mm-hmm.
But should be very interesting. The Grizzlies are definitely probably the most curious team I think a lot of people are going to watch for this year. Are they the team that out of the West that makes that huge leap? Them or the Rockets? So it should be very exciting. I'm very curious to see how they do and kind of how they start, because Nick, I think they started 0-10 last year, and their season fell off the rails very fast without Ja, so that was kind of a disaster. So I'm curious, do they get off to that hot start? Because they are definitely a team that I'll be watching for, and a team that like I said, I kind of even like as a rival just because they got that swagger to them that I enjoy, the pregame dancing. Yeah. So will be interesting. But like Xavier Tillman said, when he went from Memphis to Boston, he said the biggest difference was kind of just Memphis, it was kind of all laughs and stuff. Boston was kind of strictly business. So I think Memphis also, if they can mature, that'd be another step to their progression towards being an even deeper playoff team, because it's fun when you're young and you're a surprise team and win 56 games. It doesn't really matter, you're just out there having fun. But now you got to try and take that next step, and I think part of that comes down to being more disciplined on and off the court. Looking at you, Ja. But with that being said, should be very fun. They should be a very exciting team, and definitely a team that's going to be on a lot of people's radars. But as always, let us know in the comments what you guys think. Will Memphis, kind of take that step back up to being a top of the contender in the West, or will they kind of, still not be the same and kind of be like a play-in team, or maybe not even make the playoffs? We're always curious to get your guys' takes in the comments. But as always, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.